If you are still not a profitable trader, even after trying every strategy, the issue is actually not your strategy. I've been there. The truth is, it was my brain sabotaging me. But once I fixed that, everything changed. In this video, I'll show you the shift that flipped my trading and how you can do the same. I promise you, if you put the time, this one video will change your trading forever. Let's begin. A lot of people think trading is all about the charts and news. That is just the surface. The real battle, that is inside your head. Your mind is the most volatile market you will face. Now, most traders try to master the external, but ignoring the puppet master within, and that is your brain. Today, we learn to guide that master. Now, your brain is wired for survival and not trading. That's why most of the things that you do in life that can be a good decision from your brain, it's sometimes not a good decision for trading. So your brain's main programming was built over thousands and thousands of years for one main goal, and that is survival. It is set up for quick, almost automatic reactions. Now, for example, we see danger, then you run away. That is the reaction, and that is fear. You see a reward, then you grab it, and that is greed. So brain grabs rewards impulsively. And in other times, you stick with a group. That is herd thinking, because it felt safer. Those feelings were really good for escaping danger and finding food back then, making sure we survived. But the financial market is a totally different game, where these built-in habits don't just not help, they can actually really hurt you. That's why I said things that we do in real life do not apply to the chart. Now, when we think about trading and applying these three things, basic fear makes you sell low at the worst possible time, and then natural greed pushes you to buy high when things look amazing. Then following the crowd often leads you to buy or sell right before things change, making you miss the real facts. Trying to find these strong and old feelings directly is tiring, and it usually doesn't work well for long. We need a smarter way to get our old brain to work with the market, because we cannot use the same way that we think in real life and apply it the same way on the chart. It's not gonna work. Now, the reality filter, how your brain distorts trading reality. Let's be honest, what you see isn't pure reality. Whatever you see in the market, it's not the reality. Your brain actively builds it, tells a story. It's not always the truth. It fills gaps, so you're filling gaps. Your brain automatically fills in missing information, creating story where data is incomplete. So let's say you have a setup, and then the setup isn't there yet, but you fill information, you fill the gaps, in other words, that makes you into the trade when the data is actually not there. Even that can apply to pattern recognition. So you see patterns in market noise that do not actually exist just because you want to enter a trade, leading to false signals. Even though you are building the skill of pattern recognition, you see patterns that are not there. That's how your brain manipulates you, when we need to do the opposite. We need to manipulate our brain. And then the justification. So sometimes we have some impulsive trading behaviors, and then we got convinced by our brain that there is something behind it that was good to trade, when in reality it was all impulsive. To change your trading, we first need to see how our mind shapes our views. And there is something that we need to agree on, is that your perception of the market is your inner state. So for example, and then when we talk about all of the psychology issues, so let's talk about fear, ego, and revenge, for example, it all goes and leaks into the chart. So all of the traits here, it goes into the chart, and you'll see it on the chart in a hidden way, I would say. So for example, when you are so desperate and you want to take a trade, you will see opportunities, a lot of opportunities, and it's all in chaos, but you're gonna see the opportunities here. Why? Because you really want to take a trade. You're gonna see it. Your brain is gonna make you see it. And then another example is when you are angry, you're gonna see certainty in noise. You actually don't see the market as it is. You see it as you are. That is one of the best ways that you can understand the market and how your brain is actually manipulating you. You don't see the exact market only after years of experience, only when you're, focused and trading in the zone. That's it. In a lot of other times, you're gonna see it as you are. So let's start with the techniques, and we're gonna be going over the techniques that will allow us to manipulate our mind. The first one is going to be the art of detachment. So the first thing we need to do is we observe thoughts. You are not your thoughts or emotions, and that's what we discussed. So when you enter a trade and you're panicked and you have all of the different emotions, that's not you. They are just things happening in your mind. So you need to control them, and that's what we're going to be going over here. And then you need to create space. You can watch mental events without being them. So let's think about, for example, a storm. You can watch the storm, see how strong it is, where it's going, without getting caught up in and being swept away. The point isn't to push down or stop these thoughts and feelings. That's often impossible. There's no way you can do that. Instead, it's all about making a little bit of space. So we create space between what happens and how you react. In that space, you can just watch. I started asking myself on purpose, why is this particular feeling popping up right now? And you will definitely find a reason why this happens. So for example, if I'm over risking and I have a setup, and then instead of risking 0.5%, I risk 1%. A lot of times what's going to happen is I'll feel like, I'm panicked. And what is the reason? If you ask yourself, you'll find the answer. If you don't, you're going to be repeating the same mistake. That means that, when I usually risk 0.5% and now I'm risking 1%, it means that I'm going to lose more money. And maybe I'm not really sure about that setup. So the answer is already there. That's how you understand every emotion and what's behind it. So we need to shift from being to watching. That is a must thing to do. Now, technique number 2, that is decoding losses. We need to change the way your brain sees losses. Seeing red on your screen, showing a loss, sets off a quick, strong alarm in your survival brain. It shouts, things like danger, problem, then failing. This old warning signal makes it hard to think clearly and leads to quick, often bad choices. One of these are revenge trading, for example. So we need to understand that is a loss is nothing but a feedback. They are market lessons. That's the way. It's not, you being wrong. It's not something that is, you should have not done. No, it's just a market lesson, something that you will learn from in the future. So a loss isn't failing. It's an important information. It's the market giving you a fair feedback on your idea or how you did things. Think of it as the price of learning how to trade, the cost of getting good info. Even before you make a trade, tell yourself that the money you might lose is only the price that you're willing to pay for this market. One of the ways that I think about is, that's a business expense. So imagine, establishing a business. You should have expenses. You might get some profits at the end of the month or at the end of the year, but there are some business expenses. That is what I consider in my trading. It's the same way. And then it comes analyzing and learning. So after each loss, try not to focus only on the money lost. Instead, look at the information. What did the market show you about your plan, your timing, or what you expected? What clear lesson can you learn from this? Write it down. Writing it down helps you remember lessons and trains your brain to find loss under good lesson. Not, the typical I messed up or I did something wrong here. Now, after this, I quickly saw how even small, well-managed losses became great teachers, making my way of trading better. Now, technique 3 is gamify the rules. Now, this technique is all about smart reward changes. Beginner traders usually get their dopamine hit from profits. This will make you chase trades and break rules for that win feeling. Now, what is the trick? Make the process the game. So we follow the plan and we reward process, not just the profits. Your new win is going to be perfectly following your plan. Now, let's think about it. You followed your entry rule. That's a win. You set your stop loss right. That is also a win. You manage your risk by your rules. That is a win. Instead of profits, we value the process itself. Now, let's not forget that even if a rule-based trade lose money, you also win, because that is, you won the execution game. That is how you get dopamine for discipline instead of money. You win by executing your rules perfectly. This builds good trading habits, which are better than lucky wins. Now let's talk about technique 4, which is pre-commit and outsource. Now this technique accepts the truth. You're in the moment brain. So, when you're trading in the zone under market pressure, it's unreliable. There is fear and greed which can take over. So how do we do this? We make key decisions when we are calm and rational before trading. This means a detailed written plan, either, it could be a daily plan or a weekly plan, and then you set everything you want to do, all the levels that you are thinking about and, thinking about executing off. You commit to these actions beforehand. You have given the decision to your past rational self. So as a summary, 3 things: emotional brain, we try to avoid this. We go with a calm brain, which does all of the decisions before even trading. And then we follow the plan. We use our rules, our limit orders, our hard stops, all of these things. That is why I suggest having a daily plan or a weekly plan before coming to the market, so you know what you are looking for exactly. Because when you're in the zone, when you are trading, your brain sees everything as, it supports your idea which do not exist, and it recognizes patterns which are not there. That is why we pre-commit instead. Now technique number 5, which is visualize the process. Now in my opinion, visualization is so powerful, but many traders use it just to imagine profits. All they think about is the money. This feeds greed and set unrealistic hopes. Now what I think is a better visualization, which is visualizing perfect execution. So close your eyes and think about the setup. See the setup. See yourself calmly analyzing by your rules. See yourself entering and then setting the stop loss, managing the trade without emotion, following the exit rules that you have. And then either it's a win or loss, just imagine being disciplined. Now by doing this regularly, it builds a mental habit for good actions. You're programming your subconscious mind to act right under pressure. Now this cut my trading anxiety a lot because I'd done it many times in my mind. I already trained my mind. So we visualize the perfect execution instead of only think about the money. We program our subconscious for discipline, and then we practice actions before real trades. And another way is visualizing the pressure that comes off the trades. That way you can actually, train your brain without even taking trades. So that is practicing actions even before taking real trades. Now technique number 6, and that is the last one, the identity shift hack. This might sound small, but it's a big mental shift. We stop trying to be disciplined. Trying implies struggle and possible failures. So most likely if you try doing something, you'll be failing. Instead, we shift our identity. We start being the disciplined trader. Think of yourself as a decision scientist. That is how you embody pro trader. Being is an identity. Instead of I must try to follow the rules, it is I'm a trader who follows the rules. That's me. This changes how you see challenges. Before acting, ask this question: what would a professional trader do? Then do that. Do the same thing because you're embodying pro trader. It's about living the traits of your ideal trader self. Pride in acting right. For me, this changed everything from prep to review. Now let's talk about the twin demons, fear and greed. They are not just feelings now. They're time travelers. Fear drags past losses into today's choices, making you too cautious. So for example, if you had 2 previous days that you're losing, most likely the present day now, you'll be so cautious and you're gonna miss a lot of trades that could be profitable trades. Now when we think about greed, it projects huge future wins onto average setups, making you reckless. So if you think about it, they're not just feelings and emotions. They're lenses that distort your view. Now to be honest, I used to try to fight them, and that was so useless. I needed to understand their tricks. Realizing that my anxiety was not about this trade, but an old one, helped me a lot. Markets often give random rewards, creating dopamine loops. Seeing greed as a brain caught in this loop, not just wanting money, is key. It's not going to be, having 10 trades in a row that are winners. No, we're going to have 2 and then 2 losses and then maybe 3 winners and then maybe another 4 losers. So It's all a loop, it's all cycles. We don't know exactly, but we need to be ready for any outcome. Now, the feedback loop illusion. The market is indifferent to your why. Think about when you lose a trade. Your brain wants a reason. Sometimes you would think that it was a news, it was the bad indicator that you're using as of now. You might think about the pattern that you're using. And sometimes you might think that the market is actually rigged. It needs a story, but often the market is just being itself, partly random. It does not care about your why. Now, what is the danger here is you create false connections and links. Brains create stories linking losses to specific events when randomness is often the answer. You're making a connection that this specific pattern that you took is the reason why you lost the trade. And then you'll be avoiding this setup in the future, even if it's your main setup and you've been making a lot of money from it. But at this point, and because you lost that trade, now you're making a false connection that will make you avoid this setup that has made you a lot of money in the past. But the real answer is randomness, that the market is actually random. Now, what is that going to lead to? You will learn the wrong lessons, and that is going to create harmful trading habits that compound losses. The deeper work is actually accepting some randomness. I train myself to be okay not always knowing why the trade failed. If I followed my plan, I focus on my execution and system stats over time. I train myself to be okay not to always knowing why a trade failed, even if I followed my plan. I focus on my execution and system stats over time. Focus on process over explanation. Focus on your execution quality rather than decoding every market movement and every loss that you take. Now, after each trade you take, either that's a loss or a win, and mostly a loss, a voice speaks. Often it's the inner critic. Now, this side is going to be using some blaming language and then creating shame and doubt, and then it's going to paralyzes the future decision. So you will not act the same way if there is no this inner critic side. You're going to be judged even before taking any trade in the future. But there is another option, which is the inner coach. The inner coach is helpful, curious, kind. It actually seeks growth. It's going to ask you a question like, what can we learn? What went well with the plan? Did we stray? How can we improve for next time? You can choose to grow this voice. This means self-kindness, not excuses, but seeing mistakes as data. I had to actively quiet my inner critic and invite the coach to my reviews. It changed how I felt after each trading session. So instead of blaming yourself after each trade, instead of creating shame and doubts, you need to ask learning questions or questions that you will learn from. And then you treat errors as valuable data, as lessons to learn from. Now, the paradox of control. We need to understand that we cannot control the market. It's random, but we can guide our own inner world. So we need to understand that brain manipulation isn't about forceful control. Trying to crush thoughts or emotions often makes them stronger. So we need to know how to deal with emotions instead of just suppressing them, because they get stronger by this way. Your true skill isn't domination, it's understanding. That is gentle influence and creating the best inner state for your top trading self to act. We also need to think like a gardener. And how is that? We create conditions for growth rather than forcing the outcomes. Again, we don't force growth, we just provide good conditions. You can't control market weather, but you can control how you see it. We also need to shift from I need this to work to something like I'm here to execute my plan and see what happens. You're basically accepting the probability and accepting anything that could happen in the market, the randomness, in other words. That is a big frame change. The market becomes a place for self-growth, not just a casino. This gentle guiding is stronger and it lasts longer. Now, at the end, this is not going to be a quick fix. Today is the start of ongoing self-discovery and trying new things. Your brain can change. You can become a different trader by choice. You can rewire old habits. The real trading edge isn't a secret indicator or, a specific pattern. It's actually managing your mind. So get curious, be a scientist of your own mind, observe, test, adapt. The market will always be there. The key question, who will you be when you face it? Keep exploring, keep improving. Don't just trade the market, trade your growth. Adjust your brain like you would fix important code. You want to find issues, study them, rewrite for best results. When you do that, you stop gambling and then you start truly growing. And that is the real game. Keep